Welcome everyone. We are really excited to have you all here for a detailed look at the new easyDITA editor. Last November, we had our first release webinar, and during that webinar we aimed to demonstrate the capabilities at a very high level. But today, we want to take a deeper dive into the nuts and bolts of this editor. My name is John Baker, and I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at easyDITA. I've been with the company for just over a year, and in that time, I've seen time and time again the absolute necessity of thoughtful content strategy implemented with the right tools. While some companies see documentation as a cost center or a burden, more and more organizations are beginning to recognize the long game of turning structured content into a powerful asset. Leveraging company knowledge in a way that helps customers, speeds up the time to market, and opens the door for new and exciting content distribution. Now, just for the sake of organization, we've arranged this webinar into 4 sections. First, we're going to start by looking at the features that are the most important to writers and content creators. The layout, the tools, and all the updates that we've made to make the work of writers more efficient and more rewarding. Second, we're going to take a look at how this new editor revolutionizes the ways that company-wide collaboration happens, specifically for reviewers and subject matter experts. For many organizations, this collaboration doesn't currently exist because they haven't found the right tool. We'll delve into the changes that allow this shift in company mindset, making documentation a resource accessible to everyone. Third, we'll look at a number of additional features and general changes that make easyDITA really versatile and cutting edge for our power users. And finally, we'll conclude the webinar by having some time for questions and answers. Feel free to ask your questions during the course of the webinar, and we'll be sure to address them at the conclusion. Now, just real quick as a final note, a recording of this webinar will be provided to all registrants via email after its conclusion. We're going to start by talking about the changes that affect technical writers. Now, for these writers, the ability to work quickly and efficiently has always and continues to be a central design principle for easyDITA. Our editor features a ton of improvements aimed at prioritizing fast access to the functionality that is the most important to the technical writers. This aspect of fast access starts right from the beginning. So I'm just going to navigate over to the authoring tab over here, and then you can see the folder view. Now writers can navigate through here to find the content that they want to edit. But right now I'm just going to go over to this user guide DITA map. Now, there's a few different ways that users can enter into a map. If you have Oxygen, you can use that. There's also the doc view, which provides added context of the map hierarchy. If you want a cleaner look, you can also open in a new tab. But to just get started quickly, we're going to use the simple open right here. And you see, just like that, within a few seconds, the topic is rendered. Now I want to bring your attention over here to the sidebar, where you can see the map hierarchy. You'll see as I'm going to click in a couple levels on this hierarchy, you'll notice that this is a very large map with a lot of topics. This is a bit of a monstrosity. Yet this topic was able to render almost immediately. That's because of easyDITA's dynamic loading system, which is on demand so that authors can get to the content that they need to work on immediately. Let me show you a quick example of how this works. So if I scroll down on the map and say I want to look at review interfaces down here, simply click, and within a few short seconds, the topic is loaded. But now if I scroll back up, you'll see a lot of unloaded, unrendered topics. Thanks to this dynamic loading system, writers can prioritize what they need to work on without having to wait for the entire map and all of its topics to load. This saves an incredible amount of time over the long run when authors are working on large maps with hundreds of topics included. This editor is designed to drop authors into their workspace as fast as possible and let them do what they do best. Now there's something very important that I want to bring up at this point, and that is just a quick reminder that this is DITA. This is XML. When you write or you edit in easyDITA, you're working directly with the XML that's in the backend. Another thing that I want to mention is how all of the information that is relevant to the author is readily available when they first load up the system. You'll see here on the sidebar, all the topic statuses are already loaded, telling you which ones are approved, or in some cases, which ones still need to be reviewed or which ones are in progress. It also indicates things such as comments. It'll also immediately render any review markup that needs to be addressed, validation messages, or anything else that an author needs in order to jump in and get started on their work quickly. Now that's great for the individual, but it's important to remember that content creation doesn't happen in a bubble. Yet so many of these editors are designed to appeal to the individual rather than the team. But departments and companies as a whole are comprised of teams, not just a series of individuals. With the modern organization, we tend to discuss it as if everything works like a relay race. Everyone gets a defined stretch of track where they have to exert all their effort before passing off the baton and catching a breather. But that's not reality. A real-life workplace is more like a football match. You have positional specialists, but they all play simultaneously in a cooperative manner, all with a shared goal of reaching the end zone. Or, in our case, bringing a product to market by the end of the year. And that's what easyDITA does. Rather than design a relay racetrack system, we designed a football field system where the whole organization can contribute in different ways. Let's talk about this in practice. We're only going to be looking at writer collaboration at this point, and we'll talk about reviewer contribution later on in the demo. Let's say, for instance, that I'm a writer and I need to update some of our documentation, and there's a time crunch to get this content updated by the end of the day. Rather than having a single author in the map and file locking all the other authors out, in easyDITA you can have as many collaborators working in the document at the same time as need be. So here I'm going to go down to the activity topic and tag another user. I'm going to write this comment to tag the author at easyDITA. Now this collaborator, they'll receive a notification through email as well as a notification in their dashboard inviting them to come in and take a look at this. These collaborators can be anyone within the organization: writers, reviewers, subject matter experts, engineers, managers, anybody. So author at easyDITA, they receive my comment asking for assistance with this project. So they're able to jump in, and you see here up in the top right with the collaboration lock icon, it tells me that another user has entered. Now, author at easyDITA, they're able to see that some additions need to be made to this bolded list. So while they're working on that, I'm able to also add content to this paragraph above. Now at this point, I think it's important to talk about what we mean when we say easyDITA is fully collaborative. What is fully collaborative? When we talk about fully collaborative, what we are saying is that easyDITA allows users to edit in real time or simultaneously, as we just saw. It's easy for anyone to use, and it serves as a single source of truth. Now we've already seen the real-time work in action, and we've already talked about the importance of an easy-to-use interface. But what does single source mean? If document editing is taking place on copies, on email attachments, or local documents, then it's not true collaboration. Those edits need to be managed, and merging the changes will inevitably be a headache, especially if multiple contributors are working on different copies of the same document. easyDITA is a single source repository. This means that the document you collaborate on is the absolute authority document. No more questions about versioning or confusion about ownership. The topic in easyDITA is the standard, not the Word document that got emailed around the group. Now that we were designing a system that was intended for collaboration with large teams, we recognized that it was important that we had a system where the aesthetic or the view or the layout was something that was customizable based on different preferences. So I'm going to take a minute and just talk about the different view mode options and how different authors, editors, or reviewers can really customize that visual look to something that works for them and appeals to them. So if you look up here, you'll see that you have these different user role options. You have the viewing mode, which is a read-only version, commenting mode, which allows the user to add comments to the topics, suggesting mode, which allows reviewers or editors to add tracked changes that can then be accepted or rejected by authors, and editing mode, where authors can make changes directly to the document. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the functionality of all of those in a moment, but right now I want to bring your attention to this gear icon. Here's where we have all the different customization to allow you to create that kind of personal experience within easyDITA. The first thing we're going to look at is right here in the tag section. Now for some of our more advanced users, they actually prefer the inclusion of tags. After all, DITA content revolves around this sort of tagging methodology, this tagging structure. Now by default, the easyDITA editor hides these tags so that the authors can focus on the words and topics, but some writers who are more familiar with DITA prefer to have those tags visible. Now you can view them either as full tags or shortened tags. So here you'll see with the shortened tags, you just have these small arrows here. Now this doesn't actually tell you what each tag is. It just shows the presence of a tag. This is helpful for some writers, but others prefer to have the full tags version where you can get a little bit more information. It tells you what the tag actually is in that section. So I'm going to turn those off for now. Some of the other ways that you can customize this look is by enabling or hiding the topic toolbars. Now we'll talk about these a little bit more in a moment, but these toolbars are designed because DITA is topic oriented. This is at the core of the reason why content can be so fluidly reused, better than any other documentation method. Due to this focus, each topic has its own toolbar, and this toolbar can be hidden or made visible depending on the preference of the user. You also have the option to show or hide the prologue. Now this prologue contains some useful information such as metadata and the original author or the creator of the topic. You can also show or hide the alt text. I don't have an example of this here right now, but what alt text is used for is upon publishing, it is helpful for search engine optimization of your images, and it's also useful for those who might be visually impaired. Often they will have systems that are able to read text on screen, but in the case of images, it reads what the alt text contains. So it's a way of communicating the visual information to those who might not be able to see it. You also have the smooth view. Now, the smooth view is very popular with some of our users, especially those who might not spend quite as much time in the editor, and so they're not so concerned about having all the topics broken down, but they're in there to maybe review entire stretches of document, and they find that the smooth view really makes it a more pleasurable reading experience. It's easier for them to get through the document, and they don't feel like it's broken up quite as much, like how the writers might prefer it to be. This gives a more continuous flow to the layout of the document. And then finally, you can choose to hide or enable section indicators through this view mode. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the text editing toolbar. Most of the toolbar remains the same, but I just want to highlight a few changes that were made specifically to help writers be able to access some of the more powerful features of easyDITA, specifically content reuse. Now you'll notice up here that the text editing toolbar still contains most of the functions that we're all very familiar with. You can undo, redo, cut, copy, paste, you can edit the text, you can add some formatting options, you can insert a new paragraph, a new section, an image, tables. Right here is where I want to spend a little bit more time. So you'll see here we have the insert link, reuse, and the editing source function. First, I just want to take a minute and talk about inserting the link. Those who are familiar with DITA will understand that one of the biggest features and biggest opportunities for ROI with the DITA editing system is the ability to reuse existing content. Well, we wanted to make that functionality available with just the click of a button. So for example, in this top section, you'll see that I have a section titled easyDITA Interfaces. It talks about the different interfaces that contain everything you need to write, manage, and publish your content. If I were to add another paragraph and say, for more information about interfaces, view our reports interface. Now from here, I can actually go up, select Insert Link, and cross-reference. And then this page will pop up, which shows me all the other DITA topics that are included inside this User Guide Interfaces Topics subfolder. So let's scroll down, look for the Reports interface. See right here, so we'll select that, select File, and here we go. So we're now in a view-only mode, previewing the file. Now if this is the one we want to include, go down here to Insert Content, and here we go. The Reports interface link is included in the documentation. Now let's clean this up a little bit. Now if you want to include a link to an external site, you can do that as well. So for example, let's change this for information about our interfaces, view our reports interface. Let's change that to an external site. So we'll say view our documentation site. And then let's highlight this section. Go up here and click on Insert Link, down to External Link. And then I already have the URL for this site copied, so we'll just paste it here. And this is just to our doc site as an external link. We'll press Enter. And then let's see if that works. Click here. And there we go. This takes the user to an external website. Let's just remove that. Now obviously we've just scratched the surface of reuse, and that's a very complex topic that deserves its own webinar, just to look at all the different ways that you can utilize reuse. But the point of this is just to demonstrate that along with that linking mechanism and this reuse button, we made an effort to make sure that that powerful functionality was something that was readily available to the writers so that they could utilize it freely and more quickly and just take better advantage of that opportunity. Now the last thing I'll mention in regards to this text editing toolbar is the Edit Source button. And this is our side-by-side source editor. Again, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with that in just a moment. Next, I want to take some time and talk about the topic toolbars. Now, as I mentioned earlier, DITA revolves around this mentality of content arranged in topics. These topics work like building blocks. You can arrange them in different configurations and orders to produce different types of documents. If your writers are trained properly, then your existing topics become an incredibly versatile resource. Rather than have portions of documentation messily extracted and reworked, you can easily reuse what you've already created. These topics are then easily updated centrally. The time savings are small at first, but they multiply very, very quickly. Smart and future planning organizations recognize the importance of developing their content with a strategic methodology, which can later be leveraged for disproportionate gains. That's a fancy way of saying good businesses plan today to win tomorrow. Now, with all that in mind, our topics have their own toolbars apart from the map itself. So here, when you're viewing the topic toolbar, if you can't actually see the toolbar at the top of the topic, just remember to go up here and ensure that that's selected. Now the first thing I want to talk about is over here with the status selector. Individual topics have their own statuses ranging from approved, obsolete, needs reevaluation, in progress, in review, or ready to merge. Now, these statuses are very helpful for the whole organization because everyone can be aware of the status of these different documents. And also, these statuses can be automatically changed based on custom workflow configurations. So just for an example, if your organization sets up a simple review workflow and the final step in that workflow is to verify, once that step is completed, you can have that automatically trigger the topic that's being reviewed going from in progress to approved. Now, the next thing I want to look at is over here, opening the document in a new tab. Now, if you select this, it opens this topic in its own separate tab. Now, I'm going to be honest about this. Sometimes I can get a little bit distracted. When I sit down to write, I prefer for my space to be clean. Remove as many distractions as possible. I suspect I'm not alone in this, and that's why we put an emphasis on writers being able to open up topics or documents in their own separate, clean tab, with as few distractions as possible. And next to this new tab button, we have an Edit Source button. Now I want to make sure that we give this the proper amount of time, so once again, we'll come back to this in just a little bit. Next to that, we have the Resource Information pane. This Resource Information icon opens up the Resource Viewer pane, where you can view information about and interact with this particular resource. You can open it into a separate pane, view links, see the property about it. There's a lot of other things you can go into. But the most important information is that it also shows you things like the status, the owner, links that might be built into the topic, as well as the location for where it's at, and also some relevant date information. This is really intended as a one-stop shop for someone who needs to know all of these pieces of information about a topic. Now, next to the information pane, there's this little review document icon. We're going to talk about reviewing in more depth in just a moment. Next to that is topic merge. Now, you can merge changes in individual topics from branch to branch using the topic merge icon. So you can see, for instance, that if I wanted to merge this topic with a topic from another branch, I would just click here and then select the appropriate branch. And finally, there's this collaborative lock icon. Now, the collaborative lock icon provides a way of seeing how many users are collaborating on a topic at any given time. When you're the only user in a topic, the icon shows just the one individual and it's green. But when multiple users are collaborating on a topic, the icon changes to multiple users and adds a number below the icon to indicate how many people are collaborating at that time. Now, one more thing I wanted to talk about in this section was automatic saving. This isn't specific to the topic toolbar, but it's something important all the same. I don't mean to bring up sore subjects, but when was the last time when you were working on a project, you put in hours of effort only to have the entire system crash? I like to say that there are two types of system buyers in the world: those who choose automatic saving, and those who flirt with disaster on company time. Now, maybe you lost some of your work, maybe all of it. In my case, I spend a lot of time with visual design programs. So if you're to ask me the last time it happened, the answer will always be earlier today. Well, easyDITA now runs automatic save while you are working. This grants you peace of mind, and you won't always have to be worrying about making sure that you save the latest version. Now for our last major subject regarding the layout specific for authors and writers, we're going to take a look at the tabs on the right-hand side, specifically Outline, Attributes, and the Review tabs. Alright, so the first one we're going to look at today is the Outline tab. So you'll see down here, simply click on the tab, and it pops out, and you're presented with this sort of visual structure that shows the layout for the topic in which you're located. So now I'm just going to take my cursor and I'll place it here in the body, and you'll see that right up here, this turns green, and an arrow pops out pointing to where that element is located. This green indicates where your cursor is located, and below, you'll see that you have these dark shade elements listed. Now the dark blue ones show the ones that are currently located in your topic. These light blue ones are suggestions for possible additions or for possible additional elements that you could add. So one of the really cool things about this is that the suggestions that are offered are specific to that topic type. So if you are in a concept topic, you won't receive a suggestion for something that's only appropriate in a reference or a task topic. Another really cool thing is that these structures are customizable for users who have custom document types. Those who might have specific restricted structures in which only certain types of elements are supposed to go into different areas. So let's say, for example, you're working in this top one, you see here, looking at this section, and we want to add another section. Just click on it, and it'll pop right up there. Then we're able to add a title and begin working from there. This is great for speeding up the process when there's a lot of elements that you need to add quickly. Now, next, we're going to take a look over here at the Attributes tab. So if I click here, you'll see a list of attributes that you can apply to an element within the topic. The list of attributes is context sensitive as well. So by default, the list of attributes contains attributes that are available to apply to the element where your cursor is located. So if I click here, you see it adds this for the topic abstract to know what class it is. And then, for instance, if I wanted to create some conditionalized content for a specific audience type, I could add that kind of information here. You can use the element drop-down menu at the top of the Attributes tab to select a different element, which may change the available attributes that you can add. And finally, we're going to talk about the Review tab. The Review tab is where you can see all the track changes and comments for the document. This brings us to talking about the changes in easyDITA, specifically for our reviewers. Now, reviewers are often paradoxically both the backbone and the bottleneck for a content production cycle. For most organizations, these reviewers are the subject matter experts, or SMEs. They bring a technical understanding that's absolutely essential for accurate and effective documentation. But by that same token, these reviewers have other jobs. And while writers spend all day in the documentation, the SMEs sometimes have trouble finding the time needed to read and correct the documentation. This leads to a very common bottleneck that we hear about all the time. Let me give an example. At a previous job, I was responsible for creating a lot of technical documentation about a manufactured product for marketing purposes. Now, I could usually cobble together about 98% of the document itself. I was able to add the graphics, make it look pretty, and have it be just about ready to go, but then would come the time for the dreaded technical review. First of all, let me say, I can't blame the product experts. They had other tasks that simply took precedence over mine. And on top of that, the review process was a mess. I would have to print off these long documents, hand deliver them to the SME, and then those documents would sit there for weeks at a time. Sometimes I would try to throw in a friendly reminder, an email, a phone call, just walk over and ask casually, hey, have you had a chance to look at that document yet? But all this would have to take place before finally they would be able to find the time to comb over the documents with a red pen and make the adjustments or changes. This would sometimes take weeks or months, and there was just nothing I could do about it. Those documents would then be returned to me, where I would try to apply the changes and I would try to decipher the handwriting and scribbles and make those adjustments. Sometimes I would have to try and reconcile multiple versions that I would sometimes get back from different technical reviews. And then I would compile all of those together and send them back for another round of reviews, and the cycle would continue. While this process was very frustrating, I know it reflects the reality for a number of writers and organizations. Getting SME feedback is difficult, and that's in no small part because the tools for the work are inadequate. easyDITA is designed to provide the fastest and easiest possible experience for an SME on the go. Let's look at an example. Now, if I'm working within this document and I need a review from an expert, I can easily tag them within the comments as I did previously when we were talking about collaboration. They'll receive a notification in their editor dashboard as well as an email, and they can jump in and help me out. However, if you want to keep track of the progress, organizations can create workflows for reviewers for a simpler way to manage the process. So let's say that in this topic, I need a review from an SME. So I go up here to Assignments, and I can create a new workflow. So here I can provide some details. Include a due date. Ensure that I send an email notification, and then select the type of workflow. These can be configured based on your organization. Right now I'll just choose Simple Review. Now you'll see here that it creates distinct roles. You have the reviewer, the one who goes in to revise, and then a final approval. These can be altered based on whatever your company needs are. But for right now, I'm just going to make myself the reviewer so I can demonstrate what that initial email or dashboard notification looks like. So now we already have the selected map, and let's create. So after the assignment is created, the individual next in the workflow will receive an email and an update in their dashboard regarding their assignment. So let's go over and we'll look at my dashboard. And we'll see right up here, in this assignment, there's this request for review. So I'll click Open Assignment. So you see here, the reviewer is given a very simple interface where they can make their changes, mark different sections as completed as they go through, and when they've completed all of their review assignment, go up here and select I'm done. The next individual in the workflow will be notified. Now in this case, since I didn't review all of the topics that were assigned, it's still saying that there's a lot that are, or that there's 345 documents that are not yet marked complete. But I'll still select to complete the review, and I can add my comments. And you'll see that the assignment has been cleared from my dashboard. Now this whole process adds structure and consistency to the review process, and it also makes the work of the reviewer much more straightforward, leading to faster review times and faster document throughput. Now for the reviewer, they can make their changes in the form of track changes as well. So let's jump back into the user guide. Now for the reviewer, they can also make their edits in the form of track changes. Now to do that, we'll switch over to suggesting mode. And these edits will appear as inline track changes. Now it's important to note that these changes are not published upon output unless they are accepted or rejected by a writer. They'll be able to go in and decide whether they want to accept or reject these changes that are made. Now these track changes are extremely helpful because they show the writers exactly where the changes are suggested, and also gives the writer the chance to make sure that the SME's content is added in a way that is consistent with the document standards or guidelines. Now one more way that we made the review process more streamlined for contributors is by the inclusion of this review widget. Now this review widget allows reviewers to jump between topics, find the next place where they are mentioned, view the next open comment, and to find the next validation issue. I want to thank everyone who's been watching this webinar so far. I know we've been covering a lot of ground, starting at talking about structured content, what it means, moving on to all of the new features and layout options for the writers and collaboration, talking about review functionality and how you can get your whole team on board. So just now we're at the home stretch, and I want to take a little bit of time and talk about a few additional features. Now, with regard to these new additional features, they're generally aimed at our power users, those who are on the front lines of new technology, cutting edge, always trying to get more out of their system. And the first one I want to talk about is the new map editor. Now, going back to the map hierarchy, one of the most exciting changes in the new editor is the ability to drag and drop within the map. Now you'll see over here on the left side, you have the user guide, and this shows us the map hierarchy, like we talked about earlier. Now within easyDITA, you've been able to drag and drop different topics and change the order. But now for the first time, users are able to move around, drag and drop submaps within easyDITA. You can drag and drop and move where appropriately. This can also be done collaboratively, where you can have multiple users in the same map without slowing things down and still be able to drag and drop edit within the map. Now, key searching is one of our most exciting new features because it really speeds up the process for power users like never before. This is a great way for writers to be able to add references to their content without clicking through a number of different drop-down menus. easyDITA has enhanced key searching and key creation. You can use a simple keyboard shortcut to open the key search dialog and automatically fill the key search with the term your cursor is on. If your cursor is not on a term, you can enter the key into the search field. So let's give this a try. If we go over here and I place my cursor on the word title, and then I press the shortcut Command-Shift-C on a Mac, you can see it pops up with a quick list of commands. Now if I want to search for a different type of conref, I can do so right up here. You can use this to insert conkeyrefs or keyrefs. And if you don't see the key that you need, you can go over here and create a new con-key reference. Now for Mac users, it's Command-Shift-C, and with PC users, it's Control-Shift-C. And now within easyDITA, there's finally real-time validation. And this real-time validation is constantly running as soon as you open up a document. You don't need to run a publish process just to find out if there's any structural issues within your document. Now within the editor, this validation issue shows up on the scroll bar as this tick mark. So you'll see if I hover over it, it tells me that it's an invalid document and I need to navigate down there to find out more information about it. So if we click on the tick mark, it'll take us down to the location of the validation issue. So here we see if I scroll down and I hover over, it says that there's unexpected element and the validator encountered an element or a step result which was not expected to occur at this place in the document. Now this little bit of information is helpful and it provides us some direction about how we might go about fixing the problem. We'll see it also gives us this prompt that in order to solve the problem, we'll need to open the side-by-side source editor and fix the issue manually. So this gives us the opportune moment to talk about the easyDITA side-by-side source editor. So let's jump back in our document and open up the side-by-side source editor. Now WYSIWYG editors are absolutely amazing, and they have great advantages for usability. But sometimes you just need to get under the hood and see what's happening in the background of the document. Now within the side-by-side editor, we can find the issue pretty quickly, make changes, and then save the work to see the rendered topic and ensure that we got it right. So let's take a look over here. We got the validation issue because there was an unexpected element in regards to the step. So let's scroll down and we'll search through here. All right, and we're able to quickly see the issue here. Whereas you have step result here and then end step result, but then it jumps right into the command for the following step. So there's no indication to separate steps 3 and 4 like there should be. So this would be a pretty easy fix. Right here, we'll just end the step 3 and begin step 4. Now, to see if we got this correct, we can just click Save. And there we go. We fixed the issue. So now we can press Save and Close. And the validation issue is gone. Now the last additional feature that I want to talk about is Schematron. I demonstrated the way that real-time validation helps identify and address structural problems within your document, but we also support Schematron enforcement as well. With Schematron running in the background, your writers will be able to immediately be informed if they create a database structural error or if they violate a style guide rule. For example, let's jump back up to the top of this map. Now we here at easyDITA have our Schematron set up so that numbers need to be mentioned as the words, not as the numeric symbols. So for instance, if at the end of this paragraph, I just add the number 8, immediately the section has been highlighted orange and it's been flagged right away. You can see the tick mark on the sidebar with the note. Here as a recommendation, use 8 instead. So this concludes our look at the new easyDITA 18.0 editor. Now I know there was a lot of information to take in, starting out by looking at structured content, talking about the features for writers and for authors, looking at collaboration for an organization as a whole, how to get reviewers involved in the process, all the way down to the nuts and bolts of these advanced features for our power users. Through this all, I hope you're able to see how easyDITA can be a part of your content management solution. And once again, I just want to thank you for spending your lunch break with us. And now, turn it over for questions and answers. Thank you all for your time.